For this take of practical production, we are going to show you how to create dynamic multi-box shots for a fictional sports interview show called Ask the Coach. This show opens with a full shot of the studio host and then transitions into a 2-box shot where the host will interview the coach. When the show then opens up to callers, they are brought on screen using a 3-box shot. The show moves between these shots with smooth transitions. We will create these shots in the Mix Effect 1 bus on the TriCaster, layering video sources on DSKs over a background image stored in GFX1. There are 3 video streams that we will need to work with: the host in the studio, the coach coming over LiveToAir, and any call-in fans through Call-in Manager. With all these layers assigned, let's bring the studio host on screen and use the position controls to lock in her shot. We will then click on the Comp button above the ME's T-bar and take a snapshot of this layout in slot number 1. With that composition saved, we will now reconfigure the screen for the 2-box shot. For this layout, we will need to shift the studio host partly off of the left side of the screen, but keeping the shot properly framed. We will also shrink its size to around 80%. In addition, we will set the studio host as the topmost layer in this new composition by assigning it a priority higher than any other layer. Now let's add the shot of the coach to this composition. We will take this layer on screen and open up its position panel to make some adjustments. Since we want to place it symmetrically with the studio host for the 2-box, let's slide it over to the right side of the frame. We will also shrink it down to 80% to match the scale of the studio host shot. For this shot of the coach, we will also need to trim its edges to correctly frame the image. To do this, we click on the Edges tab and adjust the left and right edges of the video to get everything laid out correctly without any overlaps. We should also jump back to the Position tab and set the priority of this layer to 1 to make sure that it appears from under the studio host layer. With the 2-box now laid out, let's click on the Comp button and take a snapshot of this layout in slot number 2. We can now click between these 2 saved compositions to make sure that everything looks good. That's exactly what we were looking for. So we are now ready to create our 3-box shot that adds a caller from our Call-in Manager. We start by rearranging the host and coach layers. We can jump into the host layer's position controls and slide it further to the left. We'll also want to shrink it down a bit more. Now, let's jump over to the coach layer. We'll click on its position control and adjust it so that it's centered on the screen. Since this layer will now be in front, we should also adjust its priority to 3. We'll also need to go over to the Edges controls and retrim the sides to frame it correctly. With that done, we now want to set up the layer for the call-in fan. We'll open up the position window and slide the layer over to the right side. We'll also scale it down to about 50% to match the studio host layer. We'll also set its layer priority to 2 to make sure that it appears under the coach layer. And we can now bring the layer on screen. Since this looks good, let's open up the Comp window and take a snapshot in the 3rd available slot. We can now click through the composition presets to make sure that everything looks the way we wanted it to. From what we see here, this looks fine. We can transition from the 1 shot to the 2 shot to the 3 shot. With this done, we can now move smoothly between a full shot, an interview 2-box, and a live caller 3-box. On our next take of practical production, we'll start to look at ways you can use macros and automation to streamline your productions. We hope you'll join us. If you'd like to find out more about our LiveToAir and Colon Manager products, just visit us at www.gnural.net.com.